Hey everyone, thanks for coming back. It's been a long time since we've done a CineRex Live. It's been quite a while since we released a new episode, but I just wanted to tell everybody we are going to be releasing a bunch of new episodes coming up. We're into our season 2 that we're calling it, even though it's not really a season, but we have a bunch of episodes that we're going to be dropping, and initially a bunch of episodes that have to do with Star Wars. It's the 46th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. It is the opening day of Mandalorian Grogu, so we're very excited to have as our special guest today, Gus Lopez. Gus Lopez, thanks for coming
thank
on.
you, Dan.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. No, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, just for those folks that don't know who you are, and I imagine a bunch of people watching this show will know who you are, but how do you explain yourself to the normies out there?
Okay, yeah. Well, it's hard to explain to the normies because my Star Wars fandom and collecting isn't anything close to being normie. But I would expect most people don't know who I am. But I'm basically a Star Wars collector, like many other collectors. But I've been doing it a long time, and I really emphasize in my collecting these days on trying to find the unique and undocumented and great discoveries and one-of-a-kind items and that kind of thing. I'm really driven by thrill of the hunt and trying to find things we didn't know about and learn about. So that's like a theme in my collecting, but I collect in a few different categories.
Okay, so would you consider yourself a professional Star Wars collector?
Um, Technically, no, because I don't do it for a living, but I would say I'm a seasoned, fairly well seasoned
Well,
Star Wars collector.
you may not do it for a living, but you probably live to collect, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, there's that. I agree with that. I live to collect. Yeah.
How deep does your Star Wars collecting go? And before you answer that,
Yeah.
let's just state that this is again. We don't want to have any tangents about Star Wars Pine Sols or anything like that products down the road. But generally speaking, how deep does Star Wars collecting go?
Well, collecting, you're saying in broadly,
Yes.
Star Wars collecting gets incredibly deep and incredibly broad. And I'm actually very impressed when you compare Star Wars collecting to other genres of collecting. It's actually really impressive the level of detail and sophistication and nuance and diversity of Star Wars collecting. I'm very impressed because I like to learn from other collecting genres, and I constantly come back to Star Wars collectors do this amazing job of just really studying things and looking at things from a lot of different angles. Now, as far as the depth of my collection, I have a few categories I collect in that I go very deep. Like I'm trying to either if it's one of a kind type of things, it's cover a nice breadth of things that are representative. But if it's like a category that's like where there's a finite number of items, I try to be as completist as I can in that category.
Interesting. When did you start collecting Star Wars, and what was your first piece?
Yeah, when I started, it's actually I would say as an adult, like a young adult, it was really like a circa 1990, 91 when I really started to get back into it. But I'm not one of those people that's like a gatekeeper on what defines a collector. Like even when Star Wars first came out in 1977, like I collected the action figures and the trading cards, and
As did I.
yeah, and I've still kept all that stuff since then, right? And like
Sadly,
so,
I didn't, but that's a story for
okay.
another time.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have known you at the time. I would have said, Dan, don't get rid of that stuff,
Yeah.
save it. But no, I started with the action, sorry, with the trading cards. That was one of the first things that were out. Topps had a series of blue bordered trading cards.
And you still have those.
I still have them. I still have my original set of the 66, I think it's like 66 cards and 11 stickers or something like that.
Very cool.
And then shortly after I got the comics, because they were at the time I got the cards, they were starting to release the comics. They were already well into the issues that covered the movie, and so I got those as they were coming out, and then I got the few issues I had missed. But I was like deep into Star Wars really early, and I kept everything I had throughout the 70s and 80s. I kept it all. But there was a period from like 1986 to about 1990 where there just wasn't a lot going on, right? The fan club had ended, so my subscription to the fan club newsletter, Bantha Tracks ended. the Marvel comic ended. So all the connections that we had in those days to like the fan community were gone.
Yeah.
So I was still into Star Wars, but there wasn't much going on. And then in the early '90s, you had the Timothy Zahn novels, you had the Dark Empire
There's a
comic,
bit of a
you had a lot of
resurgence.
people coming together on the internet to talk about Star Wars, and so that really brought me back into collecting, and that's where I really started to ramp. So I would say early to answer a very long-winded, but started really actively collecting. Consider myself like somebody who's really focused on being a Star Wars collector, really the early 1990s,
Okay.
and then the action figures really like about '93 is when I really got in earnest working on the action figures.
As you've been collecting Star Wars, your collection obviously is massive, and you've picked up a lot of pieces over the years. But I'm curious, is there ever you remember a piece that got away that you wish you would have not grabbed?
There's a few. The way I think about it is, and I can give some examples, but like there are definitely pieces that got away, and I think every collector can lament about the moments they missed out on opportunities. I look at it on the balance. Like I've had so many opportunities that were so successful that far outnumber the times I made a mistake and didn't go after something I wanted. So I don't stress about it too much because I think on the balance I'm doing okay on it. And I think most people who've been collecting a long time have that can view it in that framework. But there are certain things like, for example, there's one of the frustrating ones was there was some. I collect cereal boxes. I have like I think the world's most extensive Star Wars cereal box collection. I have like over 2,000 different cereal boxes.
Most people probably didn't even know that was a thing, and it is. It's a
Yeah,
serious thing.
I mean, a lot of people don't think to collect cereal boxes at all, and would never guess there's that many different cereal boxes they've made. Um, and fortunately, like in many ways, like whenever there's like a movie, I always am like, oh, here we go again, because I have like 300 contacts around the world that have been looking for me since the '90s in like over 100 countries. That I mean, when a serial promotion happens, like, and this is where explaining myself to the normies is like, this guy's insane. But basically, I have this network of friends all over the world that some of them have been getting cereal boxes for me for like 30 years. And I have them in all these countries, and a movie comes out, I blast out an email, I go, okay, they're starting to discover cereal boxes. I need you to look for these. So anyway, and fortunately, by the way, for Mandalorian and Grogu, it doesn't appear they have any serial promotions going on, which actually is kind of a relief. But
otherwise, you'd be forced to get some, right?
I'd be forced to, yeah, because it gets crazy. It's like
you're a slave to your collection.
I got to get the one in Malaysia, and I got to get the one in South Africa, and I got to get the one, in Egypt, and so it gets kind of nutty. But yeah, there were some vintage Canadian cereal boxes from the '70s. They've been elusive to me. They made like 8 different ones from General Mills, like Cheerios, Monster cereals, Trix, Lucky Charms, Cocoa Puffs, and I have 2 of the 8. And there was an auction several years ago that had almost all of them. And I was following the auction. I went through all the auction listings, but they didn't do a very good job of being very clear of what was in each lot. And the initial photos didn't show it, but it actually had the Canadian cereal boxes, and I completely missed that they were in the auction. And they ended up going very cheap. Like I would have spent a lot more to get them. And
clearly more than what, $3 that you would buy at the store.
Yeah, they sold for more than that, but it was like they could have gone for a lot more. And I've not seen them since. I've never seen them come up in other auctions. Those boxes, they're just very tough.
I imagine you really like cereal, right? I mean, you eat a lot of cereal.
I do like cereal. Yeah.
Is that why you started collecting cereal boxes?
Actually, it was more for the challenge. Early on, I figured out that, early on, I thought, well, this is a really attainable goal, because in the vintage years, there's maybe like 40 different boxes. So I'm like, all right, this is a nice finite. There's not going to be more than 40 of these I have to go after. And of course, then they started making more movies, and then it got kind of crazy. And the completist gene in me was like, oh, I got to keep getting these things.
You couldn't
now
stop.
It's like over 2,000. But yeah, but they were really hard. I mean, a lot. If there's a theme in my collecting, one of them is I like the challenge. I go after really hard stuff, not necessarily valuable stuff, but stuff that's really challenging to find. And the cereal boxes are tough. I mean, even in the 90s, which wasn't that long after Star Wars came out, they were still very tough to find. So I picked that category because it was challenging. Uh, but it was fun that way because every time I'd find one, it was just this excitement of finding this rare, really hard to find thing. But I haven't been able to find the Canadian boxes. There was that chance and that was blown, and I haven't since seen them come up.
Well, you just got to figure out who bought that collection.
Oh, I know who won it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, I had a
Obviously,
couple
you don't
friends
want to
of mine
sell
that
it,
were
do they?
bidding. A couple of friends of mine were bidding in the auction, just didn't happen to tell me about the auction.
Don't you hate it when that happens? They just
Oh,
happen
yeah.
not to tell you till right after that auction ends. Oh, by the way, did you see that auction?
Yeah,
No. Oh, great.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. What? So, would you say collecting got serious for you in the '90s, or did it still take a while for you to become a serious Star Wars collector?
Um, yeah, I think so. And a lot of it depends on like what you mean by serious. Like, I mean, I was pretty dedicated, very focused, very, yeah, I would say 90s is when I was serious about it, but broadly, but at the same time, like, for me, it was always fun. It was always like I try not to in my collecting take it too seriously. Like, like, yeah,
Right.
I mean, I am methodical. Like I do a lot of things. I research, I network, I compare things to photography we have. I try to be smart about budgeting and when to splurge and when to be cheap. So there are a lot of things that go into collecting,
Collecting
but
is like a lifestyle, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, no, and it has a lot of skills to, I mean, there are a lot of skills to develop that make you more effective at finding things or matching what your vision is for your collection with with what the outcome is. And I believe there are a lot of skills you develop in it. And in that sense it's serious. It's real, like I really think about, how do I let people know of what I'm after? Because that helps a lot. People help friends out a lot of times, and letting them know I'm looking for this has helped me
Yeah,
many, many, many
I agree.
times. But understanding the market, understanding prices, understanding how often things come up. Like I know when it's an item that you never see, that's the time to splurge. When it's an item that's expensive but does come around, I'm like, well, I could wait. I might pay more, but I know I'll be able to find it if I really want that. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I would say in the 90s when I got really serious about it, but at the same time, with that said, try not to take ourselves too seriously, right? I don't ever want to gatekeep. I don't want to ever say this is the right way to collect and these are wrong ways. Like collecting is what each of us individually define as the rules around our
Yeah.
collection and what makes us happy. And so, there are people that collect stuff I would never collect. That doesn't make it wrong or worse or not real collecting or anything like that.
It's
So
a very
I
personal
always am
thing.
very clear about let's not take ourselves too seriously in collecting.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very personal thing. I agree. I agree. All right. Well, as we move into something that we want to share with the audience, before we get there, tell us a little bit about the Collector's Archive, something that you helped create.
Yes. So Star Wars Collectors Archive is a website I created in 1994. It was the first Star Wars collecting website on the internet, and I created this thing to basically be originally it was just I had a bunch of friends on the internet who were all Star Wars collectors, and we were like, the World Wide Web was emerging at that time. And I said, well, look, I can host this. I can create this website. Why don't we just share all our content and have a site where we have a virtual museum and really try to focus on the coolest stuff that we don't see every day. But we weren't, in the early days, it wasn't really too bounded. It was anything Star Wars collecting. And then over time, it's really developed to be what is the most unusual document, like just unusual, less known stuff. And it grew, it just sort of snowballed from there. I mean, originally it was just like a place for us to just throw our images. But at the time, people thought it was nuts. I mean, circa 1994, there were like three Star Wars websites, like Star Wars broadly, and they covered everything. And so when I announced, oh, well, I'm creating a Star Wars collecting website, people thought it was crazy. Like, how can you have a website on such a narrow topic? And of course, now there's like hundreds, if not thousands, of Star Wars collecting websites. But it was like, it was a growing thing and it ended up kind of snowballing. And then years later, after Duncan Jenkins and I did our first book that covered like every item ever sold,
Right.
at the time. The book was from 2008. We had 77,569 items in the book, and we used all that as a database for the archive. In addition to all the one-of-a-kind stuff, we have a database of everything made. And then as we
Wow.
discover new things, and as they release new movies and new series, we update the database. So it's pretty comprehensive of all the Star Wars items made. So it not only is the rarest stuff, it also allows people to see, oh, okay, here are all the trading cards from Argentina from the 70s, like, or whatever, anything that they want to discover about Star Wars collecting, it's there.
Well, how many? Okay, so you've explained how many Star Wars pieces were made at that time, but how many pieces are approximately in your collection right now?
I'd say my collection is about 10,000 pieces total, which is a lot, but there are quite a few collections with more than that, and a lot of that number comes from just like I mentioned the cereal boxes, food items. Like if you sort of take away the food items and cast and crew items that collect, like the number is gets a lot lower very fast, because a lot of it's just quantity of food, collectible cereal boxes, cast and crew items. So really, if you're talking about like my movie props, one of a kind stuff, like the artwork, the costumes, that's probably in the ballpark of like 1,000 to 2,000 items.
Right.
So it's smaller if you
But
look
still
at the
significant.
Like the stuff that we had, like most of the display, and you've been to our house, and it's like, most of the display space is taken up by the unique stuff, right? The toy prototypes, the artwork, the costumes, and that stuff I have probably like 1,000 to 2,000 items, which is still a lot. Not all of it's on display, but most of it is.
Yeah, obviously, putting together that size of a collection, all the time and effort in tracking this stuff down, which is significant, and it's taken you a long time, but that's honestly not even as impressive as what the project you're working on now, which is the Saga Museum.
Right.
Right.
And the Saga Museum is this initiative.
Well, let me cut you off.
Yeah.
We've actually got a trailer of the Saga Museum, which we did for you guys. This particular trailer is one that you may have seen some versions of it online before, but this is the long one that's never been seen before, that really gives you a great sense of what the Saga Museum is. So we're going to play it. It's about 7 minutes long, and we'll be back right after it ends.
No other franchise in history has touched so many people across the planet and connected them under a common love.
My eyes just got wide and I was like, oh my God, this is like nothing I'd ever seen before. Watching movies was never the same again.
Okay, gotcha.
Growing up, single mom raising me, Han Solo, Harrison Ford was my role model. Unbeknownst to him, and not in a weird way, but he's like my surrogate dad.
Really terrible.
This car is my Millennium Falcon. It's dirty today, but it definitely has got it where it counts.
We all had that Luke Skywalker. We all had the R2-D2, and we remember playing with Millennium Falcon. It's a commonality.
There's so many people who are attracted to the stories, the mythology, the characters.
That is what ties us all together. There's no other community out there like that.
I never thought I'd live in a Star Wars museum. Would never have imagined that direction for myself. I didn't really know that Star Wars was that much of a thing until I visited Rancho Obi-Wan.
Steven Sansweet has been called a master collector of Star Wars memorabilia. He is the proud owner of the largest collection outside of the Lucasfilm archives.
There were a lot of things, lots and lots of things.
Well, it's true. I'm a completist. That means everything that's out there, I want one of.
I started growing my Star Wars collection. I knew that eventually this would become a behemoth, and I just never looked back.
When I first got here, the museum was an unfinished barn where Ann and I lived.
His museum was more like a storage unit.
The amount of stuff, big stuff, where are we gonna put this stuff? Why do we even have it?
We rearranged, we fill out another building with some more interactive things, and decided to open up the museum for the world.
Every collection really reflects the styles and tastes of the collector.
We've spent decades amassing these things.
Collecting Star Wars is what my husband Vic and I do together. It's our us time.
When I started, it was really about filling the gaps that I had as a kid in action figures, but it just snowballed from there.
I'm the Jawa. I'm the little guy that's going around collecting every little piece of scrap that I can and putting it all together, hoping somewhere somebody else is going to find some interest in it.
We have a house full of Star Wars collectibles, but we had to build another 10,000 square foot building for the collectibles that don't fit in the house.
Combined, these collectors have over 1.5 million pieces.
People would ask, what happens to Steve's collection when he dies? Steve is going to be laid out inside the museum and it's going to be exploded around him. Well, that's not quite what I wanted for my legacy.
We have to start thinking about the objects as something precious. They are historical artifacts.
I started having conversations with other collectors, and they were all having similar thoughts. What happens to our collections?
None of us have kids to leave our collections to. We want to preserve this because it is such a touchstone in popular culture.
Wouldn't it be cool if we got the best of Star Wars collections and built one unmatchable Star Wars museum?
It'd be nice if this went on to do something bigger.
These are 4 of the biggest collectors in the world, the cognoscenti of Star Wars. The Big Ideas Group, as we call them, they've been meeting every week for a year and a half now.
We're bringing together 4 of the largest Star Wars collections in the world to make one giant collection. It will be by far the biggest Star Wars collection in the world.
To be able to share the collection and my ties to the Star Wars community, it's something that's really deep inside me.
The mission here is that it's not about these things. It's the stories behind them. It's about inspiring or connecting relationships to show that we have commonalities, common ground.
What we're talking about is building the Jedi Temple for Star Wars relics.
This museum is going to be a place where people can come from all over the world and geek out together.
We want hundreds of thousands of people to be able to see these collections.
We don't know Disney's thoughts on our plans here, but I'm determined we are going to do this.
Fans opening their own museum, on the surface, yeah, it's kind of bonkers.
We don't run museums. We don't know how to create a museum from scratch. It's completely new to us.
Doing a new museum it's a big lift. It's a big lift.
How do you build a team of 120 people, develop programs, get the building right, and work together to bring 4 collections from different parts of the country to one space? The logistics is daunting.
I think the prospects for success are decent.
We need to come up with a lot of money.
It's a transition that they've all never had to go through because it's their collections, they direct everything. But the only way this is going to work is if these collectors can align on getting this together.
We all have a different idea of what this museum is going to look like, but I don't do anything small. I dream big.
For these 4 collectors, they're thinking beyond themselves. They want to create a legacy around all the cultural artifacts they've gathered over the years.
This isn't about us. It's about the stories that the objects have to tell. The fact that I can relate the stories is the important part. They might be my stories to tell, but they're not stories about me.
This is too important. The legacy of this franchise, these collections, what it's meant.
Star Wars is forever. It turns the light on. It's bigger than all of us. Sometimes it can be overwhelming.
Fandom is like life. It finds a way.
This is going to be a world-class museum.
The amount of creativity this franchise has inspired, it's touched people all over the world. That legacy continues, and it will continue for generations. It's going to be an interesting ride.
5 collectors band together and dream an impossible dream. Whether they will have success or not remains to be seen.
Well, as everyone can see, that is one heck of a undertaking that these guys are doing. Gus, what's the timeline on this project?
Yeah, it's going to be several years. We don't know the exact timing, and if you actually look at other museums that have launched, some of them can take, like the fastest they ever launch is 5 years, but 10 years or more. I mean, we hope to do it within those bounds, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's going to take us several years. We've already been working on it for a few years, but we're going to have some intermediate things that we're going to be doing that get us out to the public sooner than that. And we'll be announcing a lot of stuff this year, things we're doing later this year and things we're going to be doing into next year. So there's people will be able to see more from the Saga Museum very soon, but the permanent museum, we're probably at least 5 years away.
So what? Some sort of temporary or traveling exhibit, something like that?
Yes. So we want to get a lot of our pieces out into exhibits, and so we'll have some specifics about that we'll be announcing very soon. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We have some great stuff lined up.
I think people will be lining up to go and see that stuff. I certainly will.
We can't wait to announce it. And a lot of it, at this moment, we're working with in parallel with a lot of different places. And so until we get, the details ironed out, the dates and contracts in place, and all that kind of stuff, decide what's going to go on exhibit. We weren't ready to announce, but we're going to be,
of course,
pretty soon. We're going to be ready to start announcing some of them.
Of course. Yeah, no, you can't announce until you're ready. But the fact that you guys are working towards that is exciting for people to hear, I think.
Exactly. We want to get out there. We want people to see what we can do. Because I think one of the things that is hard to articulate, particularly to people that aren't close to us or our collections or visit our homes and so on, is what we're able to do in a unique way that others can't do. Like, we really have a great representation of the memorabilia of the history of Star Wars. And it's something that, like, until we get out there, people aren't going to be able to see that. But it's pretty awesome when it starts to come together. As we've been talking through some of these exhibits, it's like, wow, this one exhibit is going to be amazing, and we got several of these things planned, so it's going to be great.
That's awesome. Well, there's also another project that you're working on. That this one happens to be with me and my team.
Yes.
It is a series that we're working on. We're tentatively calling it Salt the Guava, which people probably are like, what the heck is that? It's actually an anagram, and the first person to figure out the correct version of the anagram, Salt the Guava, and put it in the comments, they will get for themselves Gus's lightsaber that he has, that we're going to do an episode on this weekend. And if he chooses not to do that and backs out, well, then we'll send you a t-shirt. We'll send you a Salt the Guava t-shirt, which means you're going to get a Salt the Guava t-shirt. But please,
yes,
come,
I think that's
I'm curious what you guys think the show's called. Get into the comment section and put some up. First person that gets it right is going to get that shirt. So Gus,
and Salt the Guava is like our blue harvest.
That's right. That's exactly it. Yeah, Salt the Guava is our blue harvest, except for it's an anagram. All right. So, I want to get into some questions. There's some questions from people. If they've got any questions, please put them in the chats. But I do want to tease that this weekend, Saturday morning, 7 a.m. Chicago time, we've got a new episode of CRI. It's an episode that Gus comes on and brings his lightsaber that he owns that is, from what you've told us, is connected to the original series. And it may possibly be the hero lightsaber that Luke uses in Star Wars, the first one. The question I have for you, Gus, is why bring this piece to us? Because we dig into these things and we try to confirm or take the air out of a piece if it's not right. Why would you trust us?
It definitely sucks if you find out your piece is like not authentic and all that. Yeah, I mean, I think in many ways the Luke lightsaber is one of the best pieces for a show like CineRex Investigates, in that it's, on the one hand, it's this iconic thing from Star Wars, right? Like, everybody remembers Luke's lightsaber from Star Wars when Obi-Wan hands it to him, and it was his father's lightsaber. It's such an iconic thing in Star Wars. But it's also one of the most faked and easy to fake pieces out there, because they use off-the-shelf parts to do it. So when a collector has an item that's supposedly from the film, you know, as a Luke lightsaber, it's just like a perfect setup, right? It's this potential of the extremes, like this iconic thing, or it's this fraudulent thing, you know, and then, or is there? Yeah. So anyway, I think it's a fun one to do, just because of the importance of it as a prop.
What do you know about this particular piece, you know, going in when you bought it?
Yeah, well, I knew, you know, and we'll get into it in the episode, but it's I knew who was consigning it at auction. I knew how he acquired it, and we knew, you know, and there was a ton of photo reference that we were using of like trying to see, could you match it on screen? Obviously, do a screen match would be the greatest thing, but basically, I knew a lot of the background, a lot of the history of it. It came from, and I had high confidence it came from the production. But the question was this ever used on screen? Or was this faked? Was this something that somebody made and pretended it came from the production? You know, and so that was, but it was, but it, you know, there have been other lightsabers, Luke lightsabers, that have been offered up for auction that the consensus among the prop community was that those weren't production made or screen used lightsabers.
Right. Misrepresented.
Because yeah, and so it's a daunting challenge, right? On a Luke lightsaber, if I'm going to splurge on something like that, I want to have high confidence. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a good piece to cover on the show, and I, you know, I did a lot of research on my own before I bid on it in auction, but it's a fun piece. It's just so iconic, and so I'm glad you're starting the new season with it. It's kind of a fun episode for that.
Yeah, you need to watch the episode. It's really good. We get into a lot of interesting things about it, and you'll just have to watch it to see how it turns out. But one thing, the gentleman that did acquire it initially, that found it in the UK at the after Star Wars filmed, that ultimately had it for many years, his name was Andy Mitchell. Since we've talked, Gus, I was on a trip to the UK a couple weeks back, and I tracked him down and actually interviewed him. So we're gonna play a little bit of that interview right now. I'm curious to see what you think and everybody sees.
That's great.
Yeah, my name's Andy Wood Mitchell. My father was the managing director of Elstree Film Studios from 1974 to 1990. The Star Wars films were all shot there, the original first three. When my father came into the studios, the first thing he was told was to lay off 50% of the staff, with a view basically that the board had to close the studios. George Lucas was looking for a facility, but he needed somewhere that was not horrendously expensive. He went to Pinewood, trying to sell them the concept of the film, I think, and they just were not interested at all, because they didn't need, as far as they were concerned, to tout for business. My father, on the other hand, was in a rather different situation, because he was trying to stabilise the situation at Elstree, and so I think he gave George Lucas a very good deal. As a kid, particularly, it was just amazing. It was a bit like walking into some sort of weird, surreal landscape. My dad would take either my sister to the studios or myself to the studios. I think he probably didn't want a load of hassle with us arguing, so he used to take us on separate days. And he loved the studio so much, I guess even on the weekends he couldn't bear being parted from it, so he always used to go for a walk there. It was a very kind of unique perspective to be able to kind of wander around before and after movies were made, and some of them would become huge and some of them just sort of sank without a trace. The studios at that time had a thing called the back lot. It was a sort of factotum space, a big earthy mound. There was one afternoon we were wandering around and I noticed this thing. When I looked at it, I said, I'm sure this is a lightsaber. And he was kind of, yeah, whatever, kind of. And I said, well, can I have it? And he said, it's lying around here, it's been discarded. And so I took it home. I don't know whether it had been used. I used to like to tell myself it was the one that was being used when they were shooting the bit where he's fighting against the ball. But in all honesty, I don't know whether that would be the case, because I didn't bother to examine the history of this item. But it was shot somewhere where the Millennium Falcon had been, because I think some of that had been shot. They had some of that on the outside as well as stuff that was done inside. Anyway, I don't know. But yeah, it sort of sat in my room on my chest of drawers for years and years and years. And then there was a guy that I used to go to this drama thing called Chicken Shed, and they used to have a lot of parties, and this guy was coming up. It was his 18th birthday party. This is a terrible story, really. So I don't want to spend any money. But he was crazy about Star Wars. And quite frankly, my interest in Star Wars had waned by then. I was about 18 or something. And I thought, or 17, and I thought, you know, I'll give it to him because he'll love that. I think I like telling this story because it enrages Star Wars fans. And so I completely and utterly forgot about it. And then there used to be a program on Radio 4, which they had a thing called the film program. I just happened to hear at the end of it, oh, if anybody has anybody who is in the film industry or had somebody in the film industry, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have a chat with you. So I just wrote in saying, well, my dad ran Elstree Film Studios. I don't know whether you're interested, but there you go. If you want to have a chat with me about it, I'd be very happy. And they wrote back immediately saying, yes, 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 we want you to come in. We'd like to interview you. So I mentioned it in passing. And then this crazy guy, Ruben, contacted me saying, I heard this program. Is there any way that you can connect me with the person who's got the lightsaber? Would he like to sell it? And I contacted my friend, and basically he said, no, I'm not interested in selling it. So I went back and I said, look, I'm sorry. And Ruben, being very persistent, tracked him down, because I wouldn't give him his email because I just thought, you know, it's not cool. And the guy said, anyway, he obviously managed to persuade him by offering him enough money. I would venture to suggest that even George Lucas didn't perceive just how significant Star Wars was going to be. I mean, one I found, they'd obviously thrown it away because the front bit was slightly bent. It hadn't been treated with a good deal of respect because clearly no one gave a toss about this thing.
We're back. So, what do you think? Do you think Andy's telling the truth? Do you believe him?
I do. I mean, you know, he had no incentive to make it up at this point. He had given away the saber, but it's amazing.
As far as we know.
That's true. I mean, you have to question it from all angles, but yeah, no, I mean, his you know, his father like ran the studio, and you can tell in the interview, it really comes across, and this is what I'd heard before about him, is that he wasn't like, he was a fan of Star Wars, but not like a major, you know, like he is sort of almost tells the story like, oh, I had this lightsaber, but he seems sort of chill about the whole thing. Whereas like, I think the diehard fans are like, oh my God, I have a lightsaber from Star Wars, you know, or a bit more like, you know, but yeah, no, I think it's a great story. It's amazing you're able to find him.
Yeah, it was a matter of fact when I was talking to him that it was not a big deal for him. But on the other hand, the situation certainly seems like a best case scenario that any collector could ever want, and it almost seems too good to be true. So
that's right. That's right. And you have to question that, right? I mean, that's the trap that the fraudsters pull, is they create these situations of like too good to be true, and people want to I want to believe thing.
I want to believe. Yeah.
And you have to question that. That's totally valid. Yeah.
Would you say there's anything more important when it comes to an artifact from Star Wars than a hero lightsaber?
It's definitely up there. Hero lightsaber is way up there. I think there's, a few iconic, an overused term in our hobby, but there are a few iconic things in Star Wars. I mean, I think Darth Vader's helmet, the Death Star, there's a few things,
Millennium
that
Falcon.
really, Millennium Falcon, that really stand out. Yeah. But Luke's lightsaber, man, that's like one of the top 5 for sure.
I would say as a hand prop, bar none, it is the most important piece.
I think so.
If you can consider model miniatures, some people would go one way, some people might go the other, or costumes, but certainly it is probably the most well-known thing, that and Darth Vader from Star Wars.
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, I think so. It just when you think Star Wars, like that's what jumps out at you. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. Well, we're going to play the teaser for the episode for this weekend. So we've got another video to play for you guys. It's going to be Saturday at 7 a.m. Chicago time. Roll it. Some movie props are so legendary, so valuable, that they deserve their own institution. And Luke's lightsaber from Star Wars is one of those objects. Today, collector Gus Lopez is bringing in what he believes is an original lightsaber from the 1977 production. Not a replica, the real thing. And if he's right, he's holding a piece that not only changed movies forever, it changed the world. I've spent my career collecting screen-used props from some of the greatest films ever made. But Star Wars, I've always kept my distance. Star Wars props have been known to sell in the millions. And those brave enough to collect them are potentially wading into a world of scum and villainy. So when Gus asked us to investigate, we had one job: find the truth. Because if this is Luke's lightsaber from the original Star Wars, it could be one of the most significant discoveries in prop collecting history. All right. So Gus, what do you want people to take away from this episode after they see it? Collectors as well as the average viewer, the average Star Wars fan.
Yeah, I think.
But don't give anything away.
I won't. Yeah. But I think to learn about like how they made the lightsabers, not just the ones that like Luke, Mark Hamill as actor playing Luke holds, in his hand, but also when the blade's extended, like really learn about what goes into making the lightsabers. I think because I think a lot of people don't know that they used a lot of used parts to make a lightsaber.
Yeah, I learned a lot because I'm not a Star Wars expert, until certainly not a lightsaber expert when we dove into this, but I learned a lot in the research.
Yeah, and I think I learned things too, and I think without giving anything away, I think I went into it having a point of view based on the information I had, but I think in the discussion we surfaced some interesting things that people will see in the episode, that I learned more about the piece than I thought I would learn, and it was great. It was a pleasant surprise. But it was but there were a lot of curveballs there too, where so, where there's doubt, and so so I think it's a fun episode.
It's a fun episode, certainly from our point of view. Hopefully for you too.
So but it's a great piece to cover, I think. But I would love it if people really got to appreciate what goes into making the lightsabers, and that there are actually different types of lightsabers they used in the film.
That's right. Well, you can watch it this Saturday, 7 a.m. on our YouTube channel, CineRex, which obviously you're at right now. And hopefully you guys enjoy it. I'd love to hear any thoughts about the episode in the comments after you watch it. Let's dive into the questions. We have a question that I was going to ask you, but actually one of the viewers also asked was, Gus, what is your favorite non-Star Wars cereal?
Non-Star Wars cereal.
Yes.
Well, it's hard to think of a cereal brand that they have not done a Star Wars promotion for. But I do like.
If you're buying something at the store, what's the one you go to? What's your go-to?
I would actually reach to a vintage one. Like there's a brand that they never did a Star Wars promotion for that I love. That was a monster cereal, Fruit Brute.
Brute. Wow.
Fruit Brute. And the weird thing is Fruit Brute as a monster cereal, because it was the number 4 monster cereal. So you first had Count Chocula and Frankenberry, and then they added Boo Berry,
right?
And then they added Fruit Brute. And Fruit Brute predates Star Wars and ended after Star Wars, after the first film came out. So like they could have done a Fruit Brute promotion for Star Wars, but they never did.
It was already dying on the vine, I guess.
Yeah, but a lot of cereal collectors love Fruit Brute because they only did it for several years. It was like a vintage monster cereal. And it was a great. I love the taste of Fruit Brute cereal. And they've brought it back since, actually. They've done retro ones in recent years. But,
I'll have to check it out.
Fruit Brute.
Yeah. Next question is, what is the item where even you say, I don't need that? Is there ever...
There are a lot of those items.
Okay, off the top of your head.
Yeah, I think a number of people have the misconception that I collect across all categories and I'm going for quantity. And really, my collection's sort of more of a focus of quality over quantity, even though I do have the quantity is up there, not lost on me. But I really, so there are a lot of things I pass on. I mean, and by passing on them, I don't mean that, I'm disparaging those people who collect those things. I get that it's very personal and we all have different opinions about what we want to collect. But I would say things like some of the card games, like that kind of stuff. I never got into that. A lot of people do get into it, but that's more power to them. I've stopped buying the action figures. I don't buy the new action figures. I just don't have the space for them. They're fun. They're cool. I like seeing them in other people's collections. But so there are actually quite a lot of things that I just don't focus on. I have a few categories that go very deep in. And that's one of the things you learn in Star Wars is even if you pick one category and try to go deep, it becomes... it's a slippery slope. There's so much stuff in each category. And so I have plenty to work on outside of, within my categories. So I have to prune. I have to not get distracted by a lot of other categories.
You got to put limits on your collecting because otherwise with Star Wars,
I agree.
You'll just lose your house.
It's vast.
It's vast.
It's out of control. Yeah. If you go for everything, I leave that to Steve and Duncan. Let them.
That's right. Yes. Those guys, they definitely part of your team at the Saga Museum, right?
That's right. That's right. To Steve and Duncan in particular have been, completists that are trying to get everything. And they acknowledge that it's impossible to have everything, but they want to be converging towards everything over time, and that's their objective.
Well, we have one more question for you, and arguably it's the most important question because a big fan asked, do you know where the Episode 1 Yoda puppet is?
The episode, I don't know where the puppet is, but I have the costume for the Episode 1 Yoda.
That's wild.
So I have that. It's just on display in our house. Which is really cool because they as people know, they went to they use CGI for the Yoda from after Episode 2 on, and they've actually gone back to Episode 1 and re-edited it to take out the scenes with the puppet, but I have the costume for the puppet. I don't know where the actual puppet resides right now. I'm assuming Lucas owns it still, but.
Well, I'm curious to see. It may not even exist anymore because I've handled some Episode 1 masks and creatures, and the silicone that they used back then deteriorated. So it's very possible that the Yoda skin just disappeared or
that's
rotted
a good
away.
Point. Yes, yeah. I mean, and I know Lisa Stevens has some of the Stuart Freeborn Yoda from Empire Strikes Back. And that was not silicone, but that was foam latex.
That's right.
And, there you're dealing with heavy deterioration. But the silicone stuff, yeah, I have a number of things, from the prequels that they use silicone, and that does not last. Like it's just, and I generally try to stay away from the silicone stuff because it's, even when you get it, like it's really gooey and it just looks like not something that's going to stay, in great shape over time. But
it still is what it is, right?
Yeah, and even if it disintegrates and you have the armature or whatever, the skeleton of it, it's still an interesting piece. But I would suspect the Yoda is not in great shape right now. But at least I have the apparel that Yoda wore.
That's right. The costume that was manipulated by Frank Oz.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
Awesome. It's a great costume piece.
It's like having a Muppet costume. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it is like a Muppet costume. Yeah, no, I love it. It's displayed on a nice mannequin, and when we open the Saga Museum, it'll be a great piece to show.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Gus. Well, I really appreciate you making time today to talk to us. I'm hoping we get a good reaction to our episode that we did together this weekend, and then people are going to be looking forward to our show that we're doing coming up, Salt the Guava, which I have to say we did get somebody who figured it out.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was at altwisted up 2713 wins your lightsaber. So we'll just have to get your address and we'll send it out. Or I guess you're probably not going to want to do that, are you?
I'm not going to want to do that.
All right. We'll get you a Salt the Guava t-shirt though. All right.
That's cool. Yeah. They'll get the Salt the Guava t-shirt. But that's great they figured it out.
Yeah. All right, Gus. Thanks a lot. We'll talk.
Thank you, Dan.
So the last thing I'd like to mention before we sign off is today as well, we had a really interesting video pop up. I did a number of short videos with Adam Savage on Tested.com. And today they released the first one where you can see me and Adam talk about some of the pieces in my Indiana Jones collection in our museum room. Go to Tested.com, check it out, and if you like it, post some comments. We'd love to hear what you people think. All right? We'll talk to you soon. Look for our episode this weekend, and you'll see us a lot in the next month or two. All right? Talk to you later. What are you guys doing here? We're done. Goodbye. Go do something else. I appreciate you hanging out. Maybe we come back, which clearly we did, I guess. So you were right to stick around. All right, but we're not going to do that anymore. Later.